Daniel?
Hi, Daniel. Is there any more of those? Is that all?
No, there are not.
They're kind of gone, huh? Can you have that? I'll leave it later. Thank you. So, I don't really have anything planned to mention. You know, usually I put out an invitation, something to kind of work with in our meditation. Not, I shouldn't say work with, because that's not what meditation's about. You know, we're not supposed to actually, we're not trying to achieve anything or do anything special except for focus our attention on something and then allow the mind to settle down. The thoughts become slower. At least that's what it feels like for me anyway. And you know, from my personal experience, then I can see each individual thought, and then sometimes, or eventually, generally, those thoughts aren't even really noticed anymore because they're not picked up on, you know, by choice. You know, I don't really want to notice the thoughts. And I think everybody's practice is a little bit different, you know, in those respects. But you know, every meditation practice, every type of meditation involves one thing, and that is concentration. You know, some level of concentration. You can grab one of the cushions and pull it up here if you want. I know you're used to sitting there. Okay.
Sit with me.
I might get hit over here though.
I know it.
That's why I was here.
You're within range.
So every practice that every meditation practice involves concentration. If not, we probably aren't even meditating because the mind is wandering like it does most of the time. I'm not saying that we have inadequate minds and they're always wandering, going here and there and everywhere else, but the mind has a tendency to drift off. There's a practice called guru meditation that is kind of an interesting practice. I know some of you have probably done it with me before. The guru meditation is when you're, I'm just going to really simplify it once, and maybe you can try it this evening and see how it works for you. But you sit down. Generally, I'm sitting like in a very comfortable forest or something, and it's very comfortable. You know, the comfortable position. Sometimes I'm even sitting on a rock, and across from me is sitting is a guru, what I call a guru, or it could be you know, some kind of entity or just a being. And what you're doing is you're sitting with that being and you're sharing. The guru generally emanates love and understanding, and it feels very comfortable to be sitting with this guru. And you can do different things. Oftentimes, I'll imagine that the guru is asking me a question or saying, giving me advice about something. So it's completely, you know, it's a completely different meditation than Vipassana. But sometimes he'll ask, you know, they can ask questions or lend advice. One important thing, the guru is usually, you can't really see its features very, very clear. And, you know, from my experience, the guru is very fuzzy. I mean, there's no clear dimensions. In even the clothes are like a robe, you know, and no distinct colors, no distinct features of the person. I usually feel like it's a man, but it doesn't even have to be, you know, any gender necessarily. And the reason being is because you don't want to start identifying that being or that guru as something that, you know, you're going to compare with some other person that throughout history or that you experienced in your life. You don't want to have any decisions or commentaries or anything about that particular person as the guru. So it's just more of a feeling of a sharing and compassion and love that you feel with this guru. And the thing is that when the mind wanders off, like I was saying a little while ago, it's like you're leaving that guru. And then when you come back, like when I come back, the guru says, "Oh, you left for a while, you know, where'd you go?" or something like that. Or we say, you know, "Sorry, I spaced out." And so there's that even in that type of meditation, there's that dimension of concentration. And guru meditation, I know on YouTube there's a guided meditation that I do. It's called concurrence meditation, which is the same thing. Concurrence means that there's more than one thing or even more than two things happening at the same time. And the guru meditation in that case is called concurrence meditation. So you might want to check that out, you know, and be guided through that. I don't usually do that kind of meditation here because it can get kind of confusing for people. Number one is because we're generally practicing like a vipassana or insight meditation here, and number two is that I try to offer some amount of freedom for the meditators. You know, I'll do some guiding, and then there'll be a period of silence where each person, you know, kind of in a way does their own practice, you know, within certain guidelines. In other words, I'll talk about the breath, you know, using the breath. We focus on the breath, and then we notice, you know, how the body's feeling, and I often talk about feelings and moods, emotions, and how we relate to those, you know, within our practice, and thoughts, emotions, the different thoughts that come up, and how we can identify with them or not identify with them, that kind of thing. So tonight will be, now after saying all that, tonight will be really no different than any other night as far as guiding. But when I'm done guiding, you might try imagining that you are sitting, you know, face to face with somebody, and you know, just try to stay in that space, and try not to, like, imagine if your mind is wandering away, that you are actually physically wandering away from the presence of that person that's sitting in front of you. I understand what I mean? It's quite simple. So there could be some visualization involved in that or something. Imagery, in other words. But the guiding I'll do, it won't have anything to do with that guru meditation that I was talking about. It'll just be the standard meditation instructions, similar to what I frequently put out there. Does anybody have any questions about meditation before we start? I don't want anybody to have any burning questions, you know, before we start our practice.
What time frame do you guys normally do of actual meditation?
Oh, we'll meditate until 8 o'clock, so it's usually about 45 minutes.
45 minutes?
Yeah, and then we share, or I'll talk, or we share until 8:30. We'll be done at 8:30. Yeah. So again, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. Are we ready? Gently close the eyes. I think most of us, after closing our eyes, probably bring our attention to the body. And the body is, for most of us, it seems very, very important. It's the vehicle that got us here. It's the vehicle that is sitting. Sometimes it's the thing that we are actually meditating for, and that is calming the body. Calming the body of its restlessness. And if we can sit in meditation somewhat motionless, I don't like to be really strict with people not moving at all with their body, but if we can sit motionless for, throughout the practice, we refrain from stirring up, the turbulence that's actually related to the mind-body organism. It's like having dirt in the bottom of a glass and stirring it up. Or if we keep stirring it up, it won't settle down. So what we want to do is relax the body, and usually the mind will follow. The mind will follow suit. And all the thoughts and emotions and any kind of disturbance in the mind can settle down more easily if the body is still. So we're looking for a stillness of body and, of course, a stillness of mind. The best way to do this is simply meditate, or by focusing on an object, bringing our attention to that object. And what I encourage people to use is the breath. By using the breath, we realize that it's consistent, yet it changes almost moment by moment. It can be very interesting at times, and sometimes it can be very boring. We can be deeply engaged with the breath, or we can actually ignore it completely and it's still functioning. The body is doing the breathing, and sometimes it's actually seems like it's the mind that is doing the breathing when we're paying attention to the breath. For the most part, the breath is very, very relaxing and very soothing to focus on. We're not trying to manipulate the breath or change it, just using it as a tool. And this tool can provide a wonderful relief for us. It's actually a release from the mind trying to fix things or worry about things that have happened. When we're focusing on something as simple as the breath, we become very present. And this can be experienced by each of us as being our true nature, who we are beyond the thoughts. We have a tendency to think that these thoughts are ours, that we create them, and that we can use them in such a way that if they're not there, that there'll be a part of us that is missing. And it's that attitude and the thoughts themselves that can be let go of in meditation. So in that letting go, this is a type of renunciation that points to the acceptance in the moment. And this acceptance is an acceptance of everything, which eliminates the desire almost immediately. We can feel it. If we accept everything for exactly what it is at this moment, we will feel a type of liberation, and that is the freedom from desire, the desire for things to be better or different in some way. The desire for more of something or even less of something. Just the desire for things to be different. And without that is a contentment or actually a lack of wanting and needing and so without this desire drops the blame that we have for others and the guilt that we might feel for ourselves in the moment. And the blame being something that somebody or something did to us that we feel isn't right, that we should change or somebody else should change. Or the guilt that we did something wrong towards somebody or didn't do something correctly. And if we can accept everything just as it is, at least for our meditation practice, we'll see that the blame and guilt fade away, the desire fades away. And as a result, any kind of anxiety, restlessness and worry fades away. Usually we notice this in the form of thoughts, that these thoughts aren't there anymore. Or they might be there and they're not disturbing us in any way. Because they don't get sticky. They pass right through. Nothing to cling to, nothing to hang on to. So without the guilt and the blame and the desire, it drops away the anxiety, but also the fear and the anger that can accompany any human being. We might not even realize these things are within our being, but there can be a very subtle, subconscious lingering of these things without us even recognizing it, realizing it. And so it all starts with the breath. But there might be other meditation objects, but whatever it might be, we focus. We notice that the mind wanders off. We catch it, we come back to the breath. We might notice where the mind wandered off to and make sure that doesn't become a habitual pattern. And come back to the breath. And try to stay there very gently, very lovingly. And the breath could be feeling the breath, experiencing the breath, visualizing the breath, counting the breath, any of these things. Using the breath as a tool in some way. So we'll sit in silence. Use the breath. If you like, you might try visualizing that there's somebody sitting across from you, as such as a guru or something like this. And see if you can stay there, mentally and physically. See if you can stay in that presence. And hopefully staying in that peace of mind, that presence that is our true nature. put some lights on back there so you can see this. I only control vertical and horizontal, not the lights. So we'll recite this together. This is Loving Kindness Sutra, something that we do all the time. To attain the state of peace, one skilled in goodness should be able, upright, perfectly upright, gentle in speech, kind, and free from pride, contented, easily satisfied, with limited duties and unburdened livelihood, controlled in senses, discreet, reserved, and not blindly attached to groups. One should not commit the slightest wrong, that the wise might censor, wishing, may there be happiness and security, may all beings be happy. Whatever beings there are, whether feeble or strong, tall or short, large, medium, or small, microscopic or mammoth, leaving none, seen or unseen, living near or far away, born or to be born, may all beings be happy. Let one not deceive another, nor despise anyone anywhere, neither in anger nor in ill will should one wish another harm. Just as a mother would risk her own life to protect her only child, even so, one should cultivate a limitless concern for all living beings. Extend loving kindness throughout the world without limitation, above, below, and across, free of obstruction, enmity, or hostility. Whether standing, walking, sitting, or lying down, one should diligently sustain this mindfulness. This is called sublime living. Without holding narrow views, but being endowed with broad vision and avoiding attachment to sense desires, the virtuous are not born again into this world. May each one of us and all beings be well, happy, and peaceful. May no harm come to us, and may no difficulties come to us. May we all meet with spiritual and worldly success. May we have the patience, the courage, and the understanding to meet and overcome any problems or any difficulties that we might face in life. Thank you all. For those of you that have not been here before, we spend about, in this case, about 25 minutes and kind of share and, talk about some things. You don't have to worry about collecting those. I mean, it's kind of silly. The one thing I wanted to bring up that it's like all the different language and stuff, the terminologies we have. I remember when I first joined a Buddhist group, they had some words that I've never heard before, and they had a terminology of, like a language of their own. They were speaking different things and talking about different states, tranquil abiding, and they're using these different words that I later found that other traditions and use their own words, but they're really all pointing to the same thing, and that is finding peace in a way, coming to this place where there is peace, becoming familiar with it, and sometimes it's looked at as a religious experience, and sometimes it's just something that people bump into, something that casual, so it's kind of interesting. I got an email from one of my students from the teacher training program. She got certified, I think, probably 3 years ago now. and she since has moved to Ireland, and she set up a meditation practice there. She's calling me about insurance and what to do about liability insurance and what I do and that kind of thing. You know, because if you run any kind of practice, you should have professional liability insurance. And that's what she was asking about. But she, at the end of her email, she said that a year ago she went through the gate, you know, and she wrote that in such a way that you know, I knew exactly what she was talking about, and I was kind of surprised that she would know that I knew what she was talking about, that she crashed through the gateless gate. And so what that means is that it's kind of a Zen term, that she had this profound realization of emptiness or of selflessness. And I didn't go into it on the response to the email. I just said, congratulations on going through, you know, that basic. And a lot of times, you know, like different traditions will say different things about that, and they'll call it different things. You know, Satori is a term that is used in Zen as far as the state of no mind, which is very, very similar, you know, when thoughts stop. And most of us have heard the term samadhi. Actually, there's a couple of movies out, Samadhi 1 and Samadhi 2, which are really, really neat movies. If you haven't seen those, check them out, Samadhi. And Samadhi is a state of tranquility. And kind of, you know, the word jhana, you know, different states of jhana, which is Pali word for concentration or tranquility. And states of peace, basically. I used a term earlier, a little while ago, tranquil abiding, something that you hear in the Tibetan tradition as far as, you know, resting in that tranquility or that state of concentration, or what we could call presence, you know. Different ways to express, you know, these feelings and these, not necessarily feelings, but I like to call them states, because they're something that we can kind of get to and become familiar with, and through our practice, the more we practice, we can come into these areas. And it usually starts out, you know, in the beginning of our meditation, when we first start meditating, we start feeling peaceful and calm, and then after a while, that peaceful and calmness, you know, becomes kind of a resting spot, you know, a place that we can settle into. And then after a while, it sometimes we can expect it, and that's when we can get into trouble too. When we don't have that good meditation, we expect to get into that place of peacefulness, and it doesn't happen for us. That can be a kind of a desirous, you know, thing for us that happens. But in most cases, we become familiar with this state, and we can, with practice, you know, that's why consistency in meditation is so important. We can come into this state. But the important thing is that we can use that in our everyday living, you know, which is so important. Otherwise, why even practice meditation? You know, it might feel good in the moment, but if it doesn't help us with our life, then, you know, what good is it? And the way it does that is it allows us to really see what can actually disturb. Like if we're sitting in meditation and we're very tranquil and peaceful and present, and we can notice what disturbs that, and it's usually some kind of something that enters the mind in the area of you know, something from the past, or maybe something from the future, or some type of desire, you know, for, like I mentioned, for things to be different. You know, it seems like these things come into our space, And then we notice them, and then we realize that we're not in that tranquil place anymore. And it happens to everybody, you know. And if we notice that in meditation, then we can certainly notice it outside of meditation. And that's the important thing about, you know, utilizing meditation to be the benefit that it is. So if we get disturbed in our meditation practice, our formal practice, and we're out in the world doing our thing, you know, our everyday living, I guess we could call it, and we find something that disturbs us, we can compare it with our meditation, because it's really the same thing. Only it seems to be in many ways disguised, because when we're meditating, we're very sensitive to these things, right? I mean, we notice when we're calm and tranquil, and there's like a sound or something that disturbs us. We're sensitive to that. And a lot of times when we're in our everyday living space, it's almost like we expect it, you know. But we expect it in such a way that we react to it in the same way. It's like we expect ourselves to react, you know, to these disturbances. You know, we could call them negative mind states or something like that, but it could be just a number of different things that come up for us. And so our meditation practice is a reflection of our everyday activities, but our everyday activities is also a reflection of our meditation practice as well. And so what I'm trying to say is that we should, you know, really use our practice, formal practice, you know, and keep in mind that the reason we're doing it is for our everyday stuff. And there's lots of different ways, like I said, to express that in meditation, but outside of meditation, we might just say that we're happy, we're content, or we're okay, you know, that kind of thing. And it seems like in meditation we look for more like spiritual, you know, ways to express it, you know, which is fine. That's just the way it is. But with that said, I'd like to go around the room and have everybody describe in one word, 2 at the most, but preferably one word, what this last meditation experience was for you, how it was. I'll give you a moment to kind of think of that word. But I know this guy, Mark, is so brilliant, he already has the word, right? So we'll start with Mark.
And he's got the word in Pali too.
Oh, you can say the word in Pali, too, yeah.
Yeah. But I won't.
Okay, I understand.
You don't want to show off.
I don't want to show off. I would say medium.
Medium,
Yeah.
okay.
Distracted.
Distracted.
Busy. Busy.
Busy.
Alternating.
Alternating. That's interesting.
Alternating current.
Calming. Very good.
Chaotic.
Chaotic.
Uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable. Okay. Let's go back over here by Joe and we'll work our way.
Journey.
Journey. Like the group? The musical group?
Sure.
So-
I'd say distracting.
okay.
Quiet.
I'm sorry?
Quiet.
Quiet?
Peaceful, still.
Very good. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we had some I should repeat some of those. Peaceful was, I should repeat in case they didn't pick up on the camera here, but a real mixture of different things. So these are the things that we noticed the most, maybe. You know, we had some chaotic, what was yours?
Alternating.
Alternating, yeah, that's very interesting. So it was like, is this alternating like that? Okay. Yeah. Chaotic might look like that too, actually. Distracting might look like that in a way too. Calm, You know, I'm just doing visualizations here, you know, with the hand, but, did the helicopter disturb anybody?
I didn't even hear it.
Okay. I think that's what that was. I noticed it. Now, using that word that you used to describe your meditation, how close does that word describe your day, how your day was today? Pretty close?
Yeah.
No?
Not at all.
No, not at all? What was your word again? I can't remember.
I was chaotic.
Chaotic? In your day?
It was super chill all day.
I'm sorry.
No, I mean,
Yeah,
it's just what's there, so.
See, it is
What
what
are you
it
gonna
is,
do?
yeah. How about you people in back there? Does that word describe how your day was? Okay, I think most people agree. So if we, would you also agree that if we, you know, took our, kind of used our meditation and in such a way that we were perhaps more focused, or if we're a little bit more consistent with our practice, perhaps? I'm just throwing out ideas. Something to kind of take the edginess off for you people that had the edginess kind of response. You know, what would that take? I mean, as far as our meditation practice, perhaps
Deep breathing,
deep breathing.
that'll calm you down.
That might help, yeah.
Yeah, I did some prana. After, I was trying to visualize the guru, and I ended up talking to my parents that had passed away, and which was nice. And so that's why I described it as a journey, because typically I just do
Oh, I
the
see, yeah.
Vipassana standard breath practice, and get into that, and then get kind of deeper from that perspective. But I did the body scan and all that. So anyway, trying to somehow find this guru, and after I talked to my parents, I kind of gave up on it, not because of them and or because of me with them, but just because I was like, okay, so I'm kind of I'm not too visual but I was getting some visuals, and then I was thinking too much, and I said I need to go back to the breath, and then I started feeling some heat, so I did some prana and some deep breathing, and just kind of like got it all settled down. I did hear the helicopter, so I kind of went on that trip for a little bit, and it just came back to the breath. And it's always, whenever you ring the bell, 45 minutes, I'm like, wow, just getting there.
Yeah.
Which is great, because
Yeah. Yeah, that's a little bit different kind of a meditation for you, I guess, right?
yes.
Yeah. Anybody else do the guru thing? Oh, did you? How did it work for you? What was your word? I can't.
Busy,
Busy?
so it didn't last long.
Okay.
Maybe. But I'll do, Bhante Mita had started us on a practice that was you visualize yourself, like breathing, right? And then like you kind of let that take over. So you just visualize like the perfect version of yourself breathing. So I just started with that and then kind of changed it into someone that would have been more of a guru. But I get too descriptive. Then I start like really like trying to like make them into something. You know, visually,
Yeah.
I don't visualize that well, so it takes a lot for me to like build them almost, and then
You have to go
by
into
that time
detail,
my mind,
kind of?
yeah, then my mind kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, and, it's really hard to analyze and to look at how people visualize, but I think everybody does it differently, from their descriptions, Some people do it in black and white, some people color, some very vivid, some people kind of, things aren't really formed very well and things like that type of thing. But it's more of I always kind of emphasize more of a feeling, like a feeling of whatever it is between this and that, this and the other. So it's, so you're kind of familiar with that type of meditation then?
As far as doing the version of yourself, but then doing, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's why when you were talking about it, I knew that was something I did, but the guru had to be not me, right? So it kind of changed maybe what I'm used to.
Mm.
Yeah, that's what happened to me. It started out as myself, and then I had to forcefully change it to not myself.
I see, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are some guru practices where the guru is you, and the guru meditation that I led on YouTube, you actually write down 3 questions for yourself. The 3 questions, not for yourself. Well, it is for yourself, but you write down 3 questions to ask the guru before you start the meditation. And then you meet the guru, and then you ask these questions, like, important questions, something that you would ask a totally enlightened being, the meaning of life, that kind of stuff, And the answers you get could be anything, and if there's no answer, that is part of the answer, But ultimately, you're asking yourself, if you want to call it that, or you're asking, a higher, maybe a higher power, but it's still yourself, that because within that meditation, it's a reflection of you. So, but generally, the guru doesn't look, from most people's experiences, the guru doesn't look like us at all, but is just, or it doesn't feel like us, but feels like a separate entity. I hope that's not too abstract. And you did the guru meditation?
I try it. My concentration is not great, and I am an excellent visualizer, and I've used all kinds of different practices, and so trying to visualize something that's kind of smoky was a stretch for me. It's something I'd have to kind of, because I want to look at my spirit guide with his, white hair, and things come up that I'm used to kind of seeing in different visualizations, and some stuff from syllabus. So it was hard for me to not get that image, and then it just became too much work, and I went back to the breath, and then my mind, went to wherever it was going tonight. So and I have to work on that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that's kind of hard to jump into. Yeah, sometime we can maybe we'll do the full thing in here, the real deal, and see what people think of it. But in the meantime, if you want to just check it out on Concurrence Meditation on YouTube. But as far as the single labeling of our meditation experience and how it is a reflection, somewhat for most of us, a reflection of our day, is very interesting. And we should think in terms of how we can use both of these to complement the other, but particularly our formal practice of meditation, because that's where the investigative look comes from. And what I mean by that is looking at what comes up for us and why it's coming up. Or if nothing comes up, why is it not coming up? I mean, which is usually a plus. Meditation doesn't necessarily have to be a spiritual experience, like like working with the guru or anything like that. It can be just as simple as experiencing peace and quiet. And for the most part, it's a great deal of discovery. To see the activity of the mind and where it goes and why it does this and that. It's good to hear that some of you had a nice meditation.
So when you were talking about that instructor in Ireland about crashing through the gate that has no door, is that
It hasn't, it's a gateless gate.
gateless gate? Correct. In referring to last night, what was being spoken about, as far as I can remember, self knows self. Is that kind of like, are we in the same kind of ballpark there with the gate thing?
Yeah, yeah, it's like an entryway. It's you know, in Buddhism, it's the stream enterer is the first type of awakening, you know. And the stream enterer, the first thing that they realize is that the self is a little bit different than they had thought it was in the past. Like there's not so much of a separation, you know, between this and that. And it can be seen in different ways. Sometimes people feel as if everything from, you know, they feel like everything is kind of predestined, perhaps. Like if everything, like all of these causes and conditions come together, so of course this is going to happen. So there is no blame and guilt. I'll use those terms again. There's no blame and guilt for the consequences that we find ourselves in. And because of all the causes and conditions have come together to create this. So there's less of an ego behind all of that. And so what happens is freedom, you know, liberation at that moment. And that is usually what people experience as going through the gate. But yeah, I think, you know, last night you were talking about it.
More or
You
less
know.
in those terms.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, when we realize selflessness or, you know, even emptiness, you know, people refer to as emptiness.
So like you said, the different languages.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Any questions from anybody? Anything that I can help with, or anything you can help me with, as far as that goes? Any announcements? We got a retreat here Sunday. I think there's room for a couple more people if you're interested. Anybody signed up for that one-day retreat? All right, Daniel.
We'll get you one
I'm
day.
working on Mark tonight.
Yeah, we'll get you one day.
And Amy was thinking about coming, but
I'm
she
coming, I just
probably
haven't
wants.
signed up yet.
What's that?
I'm coming, I just haven't signed up yet.
Oh, okay, yeah, please sign up.
I'll do it tonight when you're done.
Yeah, because it really helps for meal planning. Last time we had a couple people walk in that didn't sign up, and luckily, very luckily, there was 2 people that didn't show up that did sign up, so it was like in with the good, not with the bad kind
I will be there, I just have
Okay.
to get online and sign up.
I welcome you, Julie. Yeah, it'd be great. What,
The retreat?
what is it?
Where?
It's here.
Oh, it's right here, Sunday. Yeah, Sunday, 9 o'clock in the morning to 5 in the afternoon. A lot of meditation.
5.
Yeah, 9 to 5. And Meditation Learning Center, just go on that site and look under retreats and all the information is right there. And then July 16th, I think, something like that, there's a 6-week, beginning 6-week meditation program starting here on Monday nights, taught by Ryan Nimick. And then we're probably going to be a workshop later on in the month of July, but we haven't set anything up yet. That's about all I got. So, thank you, everyone. Thank you very much for coming on this wonderful night, and we'll see you next Wednesday, if not before.